Yeah, man. Hold on for a minute. Let me get right for a minute, man. Checking my Facebook
Purchase
page
your tracks today.
and my Instagram page and my Snapchat page. We'll get it back.
See you flossing on Instagram, stay posted on Facebook.
It's the I See What You're Doing podcast. I'm Mr. I See What You're Doing, and as always, I see what you're doing.
And always I see what you're doing, but you already know that. I'm always be looking. But I wanted to start the show off by saying whether you agree with it or not, rest in peace to Jesse Jackson. I know the history of the thing would be that Jesse betrayed Martin Luther King, and I mean, I won't go into debating about whether that's true or not. I can only speak about the history I knew. I know this for a fact, though. We as people sometimes tend to have the ability to start out wanting to do the right thing and then be swayed to do something else. So my debate would not be geared towards his character. I would only celebrate how he started, not how he finished, because a lot of people have proclivities that they would not necessarily want to be broadcast. And only if you're in the public eye do you get a chance to have your flaws pointed out to you and share with the world. So, rest in peace to Jesse Jackson. You know, I mean, a lot of people came up with a lot of different ideas, like if that's the case, why is Jesse Jackson? Why did Jesse Jackson get? Why did Jesse Jackson get bring Martin Luther King outside on the porch the day that he was shot? I don't know. You know, maybe it was commotion outside or whatever, but nonetheless, rest in peace to Jesse Jackson for his part in the civil rights movement, up to the part where people depict that he betrayed Martin Luther King. Also, you could go into thinking that maybe the Reverend Al had a little part in there too. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Robert Abernathy was in that group as well. Not that they caused Martin Luther King to die. That was an agenda perpetrated by the United States government. And in that particular case, you have to go along with the people whose intentions it was to assassinate and get rid of Martin Luther King. So I had a question proposed to me about slavery and the change in the government as far as democracy. So I wanted to come on today and give you a comparison to democracy and slavery. From a historical context. Historically, because this is Black History Month, we want to remember that enslaved Americans were legally defined as property that could be bought. So you get the gist of what I'm saying, right? They could be inherited from prior slave owners after they passed away. Sort of like a mortgage or something, owning the house. Now, I wrote down the article here from the Constitution because we have the Constitution in question by our President Donald Trump right now. The 3/5 compromise on the United States Constitution, Article 1, Section 2, county enslaved saved individuals for representation without granting them rights. So the democracy that you speak of existed or that we speak of existed alongside exclusion. Um, I'll give you a perfect example of that. You can't vote, but you counted on the census as being part of the slave master's household. Whatever benefits that came along with that, you were not considered a full man unless it was to benefit the slave master. And this is a point where I'm giving you slavery and democracy existing at the same time. So as we move forward with the episode, I want you to keep in mind what we're looking at. We're looking at a democracy that has evolved, but I don't know whether it has changed much. Consider the DEIs and what they represent, and you also consider elitists wanting to continue to do whatever they want in the government that is supposed to be for the people and by the people. The question would be, who are the people? So remember and also keep in mind that slavery was a system, democracy is a system. I point out all the time that the democracy is like choosing a football team. You got a red and you got a blue, both of which I consider to be a little bit corrupt. It's like choosing the lesser of two evils. But so in our country, the greatest economic resource in our country during slavery was plantation agriculture. That means cotton, corn, and basically anything farm. That's the basis of our economy during slavery. Which I mean, if you look at it now, farmers are quite important in American history right now and in our economy. I know they're getting the short end of the stick, but it's still important because without those resources, without someone to grow and cultivate and nurture the food that we eat. Amanda said, "Good evening. Politics sucks." Just saying. Okay, Amanda, I understand. I agree with you. Politics do suck right now. Here's the answer to how you fix politics or you make politics not suck anymore. Become more active in politics. I know one person you may consider that one person doesn't change a lot, but become more active in politics. As far as start on your local levels, be the change that you want to see at a local level. Politics suck because a lot of people won't become active and get involved in the democratic process. Even though I don't agree with a whole lot of things happening in that democratic process right now, you still have to be active in the democratic process. Voting. We got midterms coming up, and I mean, I can't even see a show of hands, but if you would consider how many people are actually going to go out and vote in the democratic process, considering like slavery, not being able to vote and then having the right to vote and then taking that particular vote for granted, right? United States government back in slavery rely economically on life on the plantation and plantation agriculture. And political compromise prioritize unity of the states over immediate justice. So what that means is that power was protected before reform happened. So whoever had the political power, whoever had the financial power, whoever had the power in agriculture was protected before they decided to reform the way that the government was ran during slavery. Right? The early United States relied also on the import of slaves. Amanda asked if she's broke, she doesn't count. Absolutely. That's the listen. Okay, I guess I'll do it. So, Amanda, everybody counts. If I could give you an idea, and I'm listening closely to the concept itself. I'm in the process of finishing publishing. I'm going to start publishing a book. It's called, I won't tell you what the title is, but the concept is this right here. You can't count unless you believe that you count. And it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. You have to know that you matter. You have to know that you count. You have to know that your word holds substance. In the place where they try to silence you, how do they silence you? They tell you what. Amanda got me going deep into my outline before I'm ready to go. So let's just do it. I can adjust on the fly. So, of course, you count. Each and every individual on this planet is a unique individual, a rarity of sorts, because you are one of one. There's no one on this planet that can be you, think like you, or see the world from your vantage point. There's no one in the world, even if you have a twin, and they may look identical physically, but no one on this planet is going to be identical to you mentally, emotionally, educationally, or anything like that. The only person that you have a responsibility to when you look in the mirror is you, because I possibly might meet you and then I don't have to see you again if I so choose to. But you have to face yourself in the mirror every day. And if you have to face yourself every day, the responses and the way that you think people think about you correlates to the way that you think about yourself. I'm an awesome fucking individual. When I wake up in the morning and I put my feet on the carpet, I wake up and I know that I'm a king, not just by name, but by mindset. I know that I was created to do extraordinary things, and you can't think that way if you believe that you're less than you, or that someone else is better than you are. We all come with an individual skill inside of us that allows us to be great. But it does take work for you to be able to rise up and become what it is that you desire. Now, the only thing holding you back is no one else can hold you back from achieving what you want to achieve. How do I know that? Because I'm sitting here in front of you doing what I love to do. Yeah, I get the people who tell me, be careful how you talk, be careful what you say, be careful what you do. Just be careful, because what seems to be rhetoric to someone, or what seems to be crazy talk to someone, is my passion. Of course you count, Amanda. Just like everyone underneath the sound of my voice counts. But you don't need validation from someone else to let you know that you matter. You have to matter to you first before you matter to anyone else. Because that's how you're going to begin to garner respect and the adoration and the admiration that you deserve, by not settling for less and believing that because of a financial status that puts you at a disadvantage from someone else, the things that you don't have today, you can have tomorrow. Life can change overnight. You get what I'm saying? So of course you. The thing is, you have to stop saying it to yourself, because I don't have this, or I don't have this amount of money in the bank, or I don't have this type of car, that I don't matter. You count. If you were born on this planet and you were able to survive, there's a reason for you being here, because let's just keep it 100. Some babies die at birth, and some babies don't get a chance to make it here because of abortion and other things. If you're here and you have the privilege of living on this particular planet for any length of time, it is your responsibility to make the best of the time you have here. That means that sometimes you're going to have to make a decision to move from around people who do not have your best interests at heart. And I'm sure that you know that. You know that. And sometimes you feel an obligation to people that you should not have to people. You feel me? Some people like to say you match energy, but I mean, you are able to identify when someone does not have your best interests at heart. If you come to find that every time you're around someone, you're uncomfortable, or they hurt you, or you feel hurt or offended, and that's not what you want in your life, you have every right to move away from those people and get around those people. So, with that being said, I'm gonna get back into my show, but that's confirmation. If you see this thing scrolling across the bottom of your screen, that's my email. I don't want to pitch that I would be counseling or doing anything of that nature, but I am qualified to speak to people outside of here from a capacity that says I'm a neuro-linguistic programming master practitioner, and I'm certified in cognitive behavior therapy coaching. So if you hit that email, everything comes with a fee. I'm not going to take this time I have on this planet and give it away for free. You feel me? But just so, if you need a consultation or you need to work through something, that email is there, and we can set something up where we can get you on the path that leads you to the place that you want to be. And now back to the show. In today's society, citizenship now grants voting rights, legal standing, and civic participation. However, engagement determines influence. Rights must be exercised to retain power, which I just touched on. There's a push from the president that we have in this country right now to strip you of your constitutional rights. It's even more serious when you had to march and sustain dog attacks and sustain lynchings and all of the aggression that came along with not wanting people of color, indigenous people, black people, whatever you want to call it, to vote. And then you look back and you see that those rights are being taken from you, or the attempt is to take those rights from you, which is why it's such a serious thing to respect the right to vote if you have that right. So, considering the first segment, our people of color went from being property to being hoodwinked into believing that they're not property. And people who were considered to be free uh, and not black people or people of color have now become part of that narrative. Hang tight. I'm going to give you the answer to that. Just be peace. Just know that where you think you're free, you're not free. Remember, we are in the system. We're in the system. And inside this system, just like the system of slavery, but even if you believe that you're free, there are systems set up to keep you entangled and trapped. Systems set up to keep you in bondage, per se. And if you're in bondage, you typically are considered enslaved, right? And if not such as so, why so much stress from people in this country about what they're going to put on their tables to eat, whether they're going to have their job, whether ICE is going to pick you up and move you to another country without your permission? Doesn't sound like freedom. It doesn't sound like freedom. Sound like freedom if you comply, but if you get outside of the lines, and you may not even have to comply now, you don't even have to be outside of the lines. You just have to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And you end up detained or asked to prove that you belong. Which sounds like walking into a neighborhood and someone deems that you don't believe there, and they begin to ask you, do you live here? I've never seen you before here. Do you have ID? Can you prove that you belong here? Sounds interesting, doesn't correlate to something that a lot of it. I wanted to point something out in the midst of this about religion, right? I normally don't get into religion. I try to stay there, but I wanted to give you a thought. And it's not necessarily about determining whether there's a God or not. It is about whether you take the actual Bible that was written, and if you water it down and rewrite it more than one time, it takes away from it. But I also want to point out the manipulation in the word of God that was given unto slaves. Respect thy master, love your master, and things like that. At the same time, love thy neighbor. You know, love thy neighbor as you will love yourself, per se. And from a technical standpoint, if you live on the plantation, then the slave was in there. And even after that, we continue to have 100 years of Black history, so they say. And those particular verses in the Bible do not apply to everyone. Everyone doesn't live by. But let's continue on into our historical context about labor. So, what did slavery do, per se, in America? One thing it was forced labor, unpaid labor, which is all things that the government now says is illegal. You can't have someone work for you, or you can't force someone to work for you, or And if someone works, we have to be paid. We can go into the minimum wage and how that has not become a living wage, but well, we shall see what happens, right? It goes up by pennies every time they raise it. I think some states just got to 15. 15 is not a living wage, but anyway, there was a lot of wealth that was gained off the backs of slave labor, indentured servitude after slavery, sharecropping after indentured servitude, Jim Crow. You know what I mean? That's a whole different thing. I'm gonna cover Jim Crow next week, but the industries that they had back then, considered to now, how the resources were, how that money was made, hasn't changed much. I mean, cotton, tobacco, and agricultural export. And here's the thing that hurt America, for those who wanted to see slavery continue. The 13th Amendment. It actually abolished slavery, except as a punishment of crime, allowing convict leasing systems to emerge during Reconstruction. That's where your prisons come from. That's where your prisons come from. And if you don't know a lot about prisons, if you go to prison or you go to jail, you become property again. You've seen the shirts that go state property. You know, they don't even call you by your first name. They give you a number. Kind of like tagging the cattle or something like that. You know, you could be you can go to jail for life or prison for life. Now you get back into slavery. That's what the prison system is. It's punishment for a crime, but it's unpaid labor. Now, federal government does try to combat that a little bit by letting inmates work, but it's like it ain't even a livable wage. Then it's like pennies. You get it? Why does that happen? Why does the prison system emerge after Reconstruction or during Reconstruction? That's because Southern economies faced collapse and after emancipation, after they freed the slaves. So I'm not going to the field. That's what the master feel like. I'm not going to the field. That's when you go back to sharecropping. Sharecropping comes up after Reconstruction, after they free the slaves. Right? Those economic systems adapted to preserve labor structures through legal mechanisms. So we run into and we're going to talk about the 40 acres and the mule thing next week as well. But let's just say you free them, you made a promise to them. You're going to give you 40 acres and a mule. You know, you consider how much land is here. If you look at a map, it doesn't make sense for that. So that particular lie becomes a reality because they retracted the lie. So how does that correlate in today's democracy? Modern labor operates under contracts and wage systems. Economic mobility remains central to fuel freedom and generational advancements. So what we're looking at is the system never changed. It's just the way that the system is administered. And because they're administering the system in that manner, well, you think that, oh, they freed the slaves. Slaves are not really free. Elites just brought in a system that makes it look like slaves are free, while in turn enslaving the masses. You get it? But let's keep on going on because we talked about extraction to negotiation, which means you free the slaves, then you bring in an economic system to preserve the structure of the old system. It's not a new system, it's an old. The system is the same, but you bring in a system that looks to be progressive, while at the same time it's the same old system. It's just that that system is going to enslave everybody. If you're not an elite and you ain't got millions of dollars in the bank, I just want to let you know right now, you have freedoms, but you're not free. This is not what freedom looks like. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm just telling you. And I hate to do this, but I'm just saying, if you consider yourself to be free, you still sharecropping. Why? Because they come in there and get 10% of your taxes from you. Right? Remember, you work to earn your money, right? Sound like slavery. Except for slavery, they didn't earn any money, but you work. Sharecroppers went and picked the field on their land, and they still had to give out a share of that to the former slave masters or whoever they wanted to contract with. You work, you tend the field, I give you a certain percentage of what's meant. You go work, make your resources, make your money, and then the government wants 10% of it, which sounds like the same 10% that that you give to the church. So in reality, you're not even giving up 10%. If you paying taxes, and then you giving up 10% at the church, both of it. You're not giving out 10%. You're giving up 20%, and the government wants theirs first before you get yours, which is crazy, right? For somebody to take your funds, your hard-earned money, and pinch off the top of it 10% before you get the money. Okay. And I hope you can see the system. We went from property to citizens because black people were considered to be property, and then they became citizens. And I almost wanted to go out on a limb and say second-class citizens, because you were never given the same rights even up until this particular date that and the same privileges that white America has, or Americans who were freed all their lives, have passed down from generation to generation. You get it? But let's continue on, because we now into prohibition and the information age. After 1938, after 1831, and Nat Turner's rebellion, anti-literary laws and anti-literacy laws intensified across southern states. Teaching enslaved people to read was criminalized because literacy encouraged independence and resistance. So that comes along with that Bible, see, and we wouldn't be here in the position we in religious-wise if we understood and we knew how to read then. And the thing that we don't do a lot of is our own research and going back to figure out how these things happen, but why they happen. Why were you not able to read? Because if you were able to read, then the truth would come out and you would know exactly that you were being hoodwinked and misled. You get it? Just like now, there are certain things on the news. There are certain things that you can say and that you can't say. There are certain theories that you can read and you can't read, per the case you want to go and be aware that if the government wants to erase Black history and they want to remove it from schools, right? Because this is the age of information that people want to know information. They want to know what to do. You got Google that you can go in and you can type in Google and you can find out information, right? Now, why does that happen? Why do you go and you create laws to say enslaved people can't read, or it's illegal for enslaved people to read? Because knowledge destabilizes hierarchies. Slave systems require intellectual dependency to maintain order, right? Intellectual dependency. If I keep you out of the know, then if I keep you with as less knowledge as possible, then I can just tell you why would you debate with me? Aren't I smarter than you? You feel me? Aren't I smarter than you? You can't even read. Why wouldn't you listen to me? Right? You can't. You're not allowed to read. So you could die behind that type of thing, right? Just like you could die now behind some of the shit that you say. Do I need to point it out to you, or can everybody not experience that? You feel me? Well, I'm gonna just go ahead and do it. So here's the thing, right? A lot of people will not. They feel like, okay, what happened to Charlie Kirk was, I disagree. I don't believe that you should be able to murder someone because of their belief, because their beliefs are not the same as yours. You feel me? Just like Malcolm Martin, just like any other American citizen who has the right for freedom of speech. You feel me? I don't believe that someone should be canceled off of TV because they voiced their opinion about someone. You feel me? When in historical context, the person who voiced their opinions about everything is not checked on anything. Our president. The freedom of speech and access to education are protected. However, discernment and critical thinking are required to sustain democracy in the modern information landscape. That's why that's what that means today. And I want to give you an idea that freedom of speech is not being protected as well as it should be. You feel me? Because if you get offended by what I say about you and give my opinion, right, and it causes you to be able to cause me financial strain, and it allows you to cause me to have to choose whether I'm going to stand up and be who I've always been and speak my mind, or back down to my opinion and back down to the idea that I'm able to voice my opinion and say whatever the hell I want to say. because of who it is, then shit, freedom of speech is not fucking protected. So we add chains to institutions, right? But before that, we went from prohibition to the information age. From not being able to say anything to having freedom of speech to almost not being able to have freedom of speech now. You really have to be careful what you say in America. You have to be careful of who you talk about in America. Right? Doesn't that sound like prohibition? Doesn't that sound like I'm not as free as I thought I was? Is that not what's being said? They even censor the information that you receive. God knows they want to censor this so bad. You know, I've had people ask me, why do I keep showing up and doing this? Because if not me, who? If not when? If not now, when? Tomorrow. What if tomorrow never comes? What if this is the day that you're supposed to hear this so that you can make a decision on where you stand, reality-wise? I'm not sounding any bells. I'm not trying to ring a bell and none of that. I'm trying to give you a perspective that you may have never thought about. Just because we hear land of the free, home of the brave, land of the free. Who's really free? That's a question you should pose to yourself, because we got upstream files. And yet in this country, I just saw that they arrested a dignitary in another country, but no one here seems to be going to jail. The only person I've seen go to jail was Jeffrey Epstein. And concerning the freedom of speech, we know that we've almost been told through media outlets to be careful what we say. So I ask you again, does that sound like freedom? Amanda said Epstein was such a coward, he didn't deserve suicide. Okay. I'm going to try to be as careful with this as I can. Somebody had to get the holding the bag. So, and most of the time, it's the person who had the party at their house, per se. See, I can run off. If I come to your house and your parents not home and we have a party, even if I get caught, I can run off, because you got to get the lion's share of the consequences, right? I mean, do I think he was a coward? No. But I think that the practice of getting rid of someone that you deem to be a problem is known and it's so familiar in those circles. I mean, remember now we talking about slavery and democracy. And we know that if you were deemed to be a problem during slavery, they will hang you from a tree. Or they will hang you, beat you, kill you, whatever. So in this particular case, with Epstein, let's just hypothetical. Let's just do something wild. What if he didn't commit suicide? What if that was just what we were told? That he committed suicide? What if it wasn't suicide? What if somebody killed him and then said it was suicide? What if the cinematics are so spectacular that what they showed us and what they put in the news, because we won't go and research it and chase it down, or we won't go and look because a lot of that stuff is not public record. Look how long we had to wait to get any of the things from the Epstein files because it was held up. What if he wasn't a coward? What if there was a hit put out on his life and a lot of money was passed around and they made it look like a suicide? Does the narrative change then? Does your viewpoint of what happened change then? Because I saw a list and there was 300 people on that list. But I mean, shit, to be honest, I've had some information for a long time. Public record, but I mean, shit, I'm going to get the information. Let's continue on from change the institution. So let me show you how slave patrols monitor enslaved populations and enforce compliance. Following emancipation, enforcement structures evolved during Reconstruction and Jim Crow eras. Police, state troopers, state police, you know what I'm saying? Sheriffs, you feel me? Most hierarchies depending on enforcement mechanisms, institutional systems, often evolve from previous structures. That's what I'm telling you. We're in a space where the system didn't change. It's just the way that the system is being administered changed. What that means today is that democratic stability relies on institutional legitimacy and public trust. Perceived fairness strengthens participation. What that means is that in this particular country, the reason why the fight is that we're doing what's best for the country. We're trying to bring inflation down. We're trying to bring the national debt down. All of that shit had already been done. Whether you like it or not, Bill Clinton, I give credit to you for being able to balance that shit out. I know that stuff goes up in price and things change, but I mean, shit, the national debt has continually risen. It's been going up, right? So you had slave patrols to patrol slaves, and then you had slave patrols to monitor enslaved populations and enforce compliance. Same thing that the police do. Enforce the law. You must comply with the law. That's just how that goes. The same shit. Listen, it's the same blueprint. Nothing's different. It's just the way that it looks. You take the motherfucking thing, you spin it around, say this is what's best for the people, put it back in front of people with a different wrapper on it. They do it with candy and all that shit too. But you put a different wrapper on it. And after you put the different wrapper on it, you present it to the people and everything looks good. The problem with America right now is a lot of people don't trust the system. They don't trust they don't trust what's going on. And I'm all for it. Shit. I've been saying for a long time, politicians don't mean you no good. Go out and vote and put the people in office. Do your research first, but put the people in office in those positions that you know are going to do the right thing. You feel me? But they got to be strong enough to withstand the corruption that comes along with walking into those particular positions and into those offices. You feel me? Your will got to be stronger than the money. Because it's going to be some money thrown at you. It's going to be some money thrown around at you. Because it's going to be some pressure on you. That's why you have to be actively involved in a democratic process, whether you believe in it or not. You can't sit on your hands and just think that one day it's going to change. You have to make it change. But I didn't come here today to do that with you. I came here today to show you that where the illusion is that you are free, you're not. You're really not free. The system that you're in is just like when you see the movie The Matrix. You call them the system that is designed to keep you on the hamster wheel until you decide that you want to get off. The problem with that is that you have to get off with everybody in mind. Not one of us that live in this country, if you ain't got millions and millions of dollars in the bank, should consider ourselves better than none. Because we all are in the same calamity. I'm working to get the hell out of it, though. Definitely on my way to trying to get out of it. But I can tell you this for a fact that I'm never going to change who I am. I'm going to always talk this same thing. I'm going to always give you an example to look at and consider. Today, I wanted you to consider in Black History Month that slavery just changed from being specific to one race to encompassing all races. Historical fact number 5 before we go. Special Field Orders number 15 in 1865 promised land redistribution, 40 acres and a mule. But that policy was reversed. Black codes and later Jim Crow laws restricted economic opportunity and access to capital for Black people. We're going to give you 40 acres and a mule. That's a fresh fucking start. If you gave me 40 right now and a mule, I'm going to turn that into billions of dollars. I would. But if you had 500 acres and you were a slave master, or you were in this country and you had to give out 40 acres and a mule to all of the slave people that you enslaved, then you have no country anymore. And now let me mind you, the people that were enslaved were not just from African descent. I did the numbers on that, and it was only out of the 12 million that came over, there were slaves that got offered a ship in the middle of the ocean and said, fuck it, I'd rather die in the sea than to be a slave. When you talk about slavery as a whole and how many slaves arrived to the Americans back in the 1800s, out of 12 million, the majority of those slaves ended up in South America and the Caribbean. Per you having those ethnicities in those particular areas. 360,000. 360,000 or more reached the Americas. So you enslave somebody else other than black people or people of color. Why does that happen? Why do you change the policy and reverse 40 acres and a mule? Redistribution of economic and political power face organized resistance, structural inequality compounded over time. That's what happens with that. I give it all to you. I don't have anything. And what am I going to do? It's a shift in economic power and financial stability. Why would I give you something that I never wanted you to have in the first place? Right? What's that mean today? Generational wealth gaps reflect historical starting points. Democracy allows opportunity, but engagement and access influence outcome. Access to homes, access to loans, access to jobs. Thanks, Amanda. I appreciate your love every time. You have a great week as well. Amanda said, have a great week. And this was a great show, right? So that's the head start that you get, right? And that's why you don't give out the 40 acres and a mule. Economically, it's not sound. Economically, you destroy the economic system at that particular time. So we see the generational wealth gaps in the starting point that white people had for slavery up until the time that it was abolished, even into the 1900s. Right now, it still was a generation. It was a head start, and that brings us to this point right here. Slavery was unjust order. Not democracy is adjustable order. The change to choice is the journey. Black History Month measures distance traveled and distance remaining. Rights once denied are now protected, but protection requires participation. Democracy is unfinished. It's not a finalized thing. And it belongs to those who shape it. So people, get active, man. Become active in the democratic process. Be the change that you want to see. You don't like the person that's the president now, you should have voted for that man before he became president. You get a chance to find and choose another president, just like you get to choose governors, sheriffs, mayors, and all of that. You feel me? You can't go back and boom, come out of office. You have to put pressure on your congressmen and your senators and your representatives to do the right thing, to right the ship in this particular country. You know, you see this beautiful shirt I have on. These are able to be acquired at a price. Right now, I'm doing these shirts for $20. You can hit me and email down there with your information. I'll reach out to you and let you know how to send you payment. You can choose colors. Right now, we're doing blue. I plan on getting a couple more colors, and we'll get them out to you. As always, I love you. I only want what's best for you. I hope you want the same for me. Until next time we meet, keep your eyes open, keep your head on a swivel, be diligent, be vigilant, be brave, and do your research, man. And as always, I see what you're doing. Y'all be easy, man.
www.enter-effect.com for more info, beats, and designs. Beats available for $30 and exclusive starting at $150.